Today's America's Cup Racing is brought to you by Mum Champagne.
So the scene is set in Auckland City, home to the 36th America's Cup. They say a bad day sailing is better than a good day at work.
There's probably 5 or 6 key areas that you've got to nail and get right to get the best out of these boats.
Don't come off your foil.
We're obviously lacking in a couple of those areas.
And they look as smooth as silk.
We're looking forward to another day of racing, because this will be the last time we get to race until it starts to count in January.
Here comes a dial down. Watch this. Jimmy Spithill's going to hunt right at him and not let them tack.
We've got a long history of racing each other in this game. Yeah, I can't wait.
They have one more day of actual competing before they go off on the mini.
Nice work, fellas.
Yeah, today we knew we pretty much had to go out there and win both races to try and win it, and that's the same way we approach every day.
Each team has the desire to win, but only one can quench that thirst for victory. The champagne may have flowed for Emirates Team New Zealand yesterday, winning the World Series, but today is a reset. A single day of sudden death racing with the first ever PRADA America's Cup Christmas Race. No mai haere mai, and welcome to Auckland, New Zealand, which has turned on a scorching day temperature-wise, and fingers across the weather gods play ball and deliver stronger winds. It's a massive day for defender Emirates Team New Zealand, as it's the last chance they get to test themselves against the challengers. Today, as the #1 seeds after winning the World Series, Emirates Team New Zealand face off against the 4th-ranked Ineos Team UK in the first sudden death semi-final. The second semi, Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli team against Patriot from the New York Yacht Club. Both winners will meet in the Christmas Race final. To take you through this first ever Christmas race, two men that definitely know their jibs from their main sheets. America's Cup sailors Kenny Reid and Nathan Outeridge. And Kenny, a last chance for the challengers to size up the defender and vice versa.
Well, with the World Series over, you could hear the collective sigh of relief from the Italian and American compounds. They are, in fact, competitive with the defending Kiwis. For the British, maybe it's more of a holding of the breath, but I digress. Today's another day. Another chance to win a regatta. Another chance just to win a race. And that's how these competitors think.
First up, it's Emirates Team New Zealand against Ineos Team UK.
So I didn't make it across the bow. Typically in that situation, we would have seen a dial-up. But once Ben committed to come up and go above Emirates Team New Zealand, Peter really couldn't make another adjustment. And with those foils hanging so far out the side of the boat, the last thing you want to do is have the boats come together.
Clock's ticked down to 0. It is race on. Both yachts struggling to get across the start line.
Well, both boats obviously very late there. Ben Ainsley got caught too low in the start box and didn't even lay the leeward end of the line, and now it looks like this tack, they've fallen off the foils.
Guys, we couldn't have really done much other than that.
And now you can see the lead's already stretched out to 500 metres after one tack in the race.
Oh, just hard to... So far, the Kiwis have been flawless. They had a couple marginal times where they were barely getting up, maybe in the pre-start, but since then, the package on this boat, the package of hydro and aero and systems, is clearly working better than the package on board the British boat. It's that simple.
This is the umpires, GBR. You have a second penalty for boundary violation.
These guys against the boundary penalty there.
That's not a little bit out of bounds. That's a long way out of bounds, guys.
I've never seen anything like that before in our America's Cup career. Obviously, they're not even trying to stay in the race course. Does that make it more egregious, or is a penalty a penalty? Shirley, I've never seen a boat just ignore the outside edge of the race course like this before. Have you?
Kenny, they're not actually making any real progress. They're basically just mowing the same bit of lawn over and over again. I mean, just it's so hard to watch them trying to foil. They're at, you know, at least 90 degrees. I think they need maybe 19 or 20 knots of boat speed to finally get going, and they're searching and searching and searching and not going anywhere. I think Ben Ainsley's doing pretty well to keep his cool.
Nathan, there's a danger of getting lapped here right now because the other boat just isn't getting out of the water.
It's not looking good, is it, for the Ineos Team UK and Ben Ainsley? He knows that they are struggling in the slide area, and look at him, top of the course there. It's not even close at the moment to getting up on the foil. Meanwhile, Team New Zealand are sailing clean and polished. You'd think it's plenty of breeze looking at one of these boats, and you know, this wind range that they've had to sail for, you know, is 6.5 to low 20s. And, you know, this is very typical of March sailing conditions. And that's why Emirates Team New Zealand are trying to make the most of this sailing.
The course has been rechanged to a 4-leg race. So Emirates Team New Zealand on their penultimate leg, 3 of 4 now. It started out at 6. It is now 4.
This is a whole new world. And look at how deep that sail gets as they go into the tack. So they're changing camber all the time.
They stick this tack and go around the top mark. They're going to be potentially at the bottom mark before Ineos Team UK even reaches the top mark. Oh, it's light though, isn't it? They didn't pull that foiling tack off. But they've still got speed and flow on the foil.
The lift
and
in the back end of the boat. You see that, but look at, he's heading actually back towards the mark in order just to try to keep the thing going fast enough to get that foil to work.
He's just bearing away or pointing up to find the most amount of power. And once you find that power...
Look how deep that sail is, though, in order to find the power.
The mainsail and the jib, super deep.
You ever think about a jibe out here, Pete? I think your tech's not much worse at that. I think we'd still jibe okay in this, but you're cool.
But this penultimate gate entry by Emirates Team New Zealand has seen them splash down.
I think they're just going to try to get through this gate manually and as a displacement boat, and then they'll find that long width of the racetrack like we saw Nathan yesterday. They might even jibe around and head back out again and try to build. They need to build on to the long side of the track, of this skinny track.
I found it interesting, helmsman Peter Burling looking behind him. I don't know what he was looking behind him for, because he wasn't under any threat from Ineos Team UK.
So both boats doing around 10 knots, one heading upwind, one heading downwind. And, you know, it seems like after what we've watched the first 3 days of competition here so far, that they need about 17, 18 knots of boat speeds to get flying.
So the weather gods strike and the puff is taken out of Emirates Team New Zealand's and Ineos Team UK's sails. We'll take a break and be back with the action soon. It's Emirates Team New Zealand against Ineos Team UK, and this is shaping up to be a race against time as much as it is a race against 2 teams. Ineos Team UK have finally made the top mark. Finally made the top mark. While Emirates Team New Zealand are attempting to get up onto their fours to complete this now shortened race of 4 legs.
Not a super happy looking team. That too much work, too much effort, too much time in the gym and on the boat on systems.
So everyone must be thinking, why aren't they bringing out the old Code Zero? I know we've talked about this time and time again. The Code Zero is what it's a hybrid spinnaker. It's a bigger sail that you'd put up that's bigger than the jib. And why none of these teams pulling him out from downstairs and hoisting him and getting up on the foil?
Okay, so I've been sitting here typing frantically to a couple of my sailmaking friends exactly the same question, and I'm confused. And you know, they're all worried about carrying extra weight and carrying drag and carrying windage, but what's worse than this? So why not carry it on board the boat and hoist it downwind right now and take off and take it down at the leeward mark if you need to? Some of these teams have practiced going upwind with the code zeros, and it can't be worse than this.
Jimmy Spittle was asked that question yesterday at the press conference, but he said there's a compromise.
He did say that. You know, that question came up yesterday. Why didn't someone put the zero up? And he said, well, honestly, once you're up and foiling and you're going upwind, you'd be a much slower boat with the code zero up. He said, yes, it helps you get on the foil. And yes, it's probably faster in a downwind situation like this than it would get you going. But the moment you start going upwind, it's draggy. You know, if you can foil upwind with a jib, you're always going to be faster than if you can foil upwind with the zero.
One thing that's interesting is Ineos might have found its condition right now. This sounds very sarcastic, but they've been quicker in displacement mode than New Zealand. Just saying. Too far?
American Magic. This is the race committee letting you know that your start will be postponed. The new time will be advised after the finish of race 1.
American Magic copy. Thanks, Bill.
It's just worth noting that these races do have a 45-minute limit. We've just gone past the 30-minute mark. We are of the understanding that race number 2, the second sudden death semi-final between Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli and American Magic, will be delayed.
It's a very good point, because they're not even halfway down this run yet. And so potentially, if they don't get up and foiling, they might not make the time limit.
Probably better to keep going this way, but little depth for you. You got it there, Pete? I think we got ages. Unless it's 45 from the start, then we need to finish within 15 minutes from now. It'll be all of that to get there, I think.
Surprised they're not. Maybe they think they're going to make it. They just carry on like this.
How much wind speed you got?
9, almost 10. Surprised they're not trying to go for it.
We're going to pick them up here. They're not going to cross us. They're not across. No cross.
We're going to see a dial-up.
Down the boundary there.
That's Ben and Giles having a chat about they're going to dial them down here on starboard.
This is like the good old days, boys. Then we'll have a cup of tea and think about it. Oh, what are they going to do?
Have to stay about. Well, they're setting up. Here they come.
Ben's got him lined up with that bright orange pole. It looks like he's going to take his transom.
That'd be one way to get rid of the defender.
Boundary, boys. After you, lads. Anyway, 40 in and up.
Giles waving him through.
After you, lads.
We're going to have to turn here.
How about trap up? A little bit further. Do you want all of us to win?
Emirates Team New Zealand bonding.
Tell you what, I'm glad I got the shorts on today. Yeah. Let me be blown a valve.
That's a great look at the foils, isn't it?
The near straight line of Emirates Team New Zealand, and then the antedral of the Brits. That just shows that little shape difference, but there's all kinds of different things going on right now. How big the trim tabs are on each, how big that front foil section is on each. Also, how big, this appears to be the front section of the foil here. And then there's a very large trim tab on the back end. So it looks like the percentage of trim tab to the overall foil is more than 50-50. That's interesting in its own right. By the way, not a chance they're finishing this race on time.
You think?
Not a chance.
30 seconds to go. They're about a minute away.
They are just going to miss the finish line. Here comes the time limit expiration of 45 minutes.
Great station there, boys. Great station, please.
There it is.
I got flat.
I'm a little cunner on things. That's good angle.
Race Yachts, Race Yachts. This is the race committee. We have reached the time limit and will be terminating this race. We plan to resail this race after race 2. Stand by for further information.
So while our fair weather friends take a breather, let's take a quick look back at Emirates Team New Zealand's America's Cup journey. This is their 10th consecutive campaign. The lessons have been hard learnt and hard earned.
New Zealand first got involved in the mid-80s really with Sir Michael Fay. It was a whole new thing really. We all knew about the America's Cup from watching Australia 2 on TV, and that was an obvious progression of something that we all wanted to do, so we all leapt on board as soon as there was an opportunity to. KZ7 ended up having a fantastic run and nearly pulled off the impossible and sparked people's imagination back here and started the 35-year plus involvement in the America's Cup.
12 years ago, the call went out to stay Stand Up Australia. Now in 1995, it's Stand Up New Zealand. International sport's oldest prize leaves the United States, this time to a different down under, New Zealand!
Coming into 2000, Team New Zealand at that point really picked up on what they knew as a winning combination or winning formula in 95 and expanded on that.
Absolutely magnificent! Dean Barker, it doesn't get any better than this!
Got stronger again in design, got stronger again with the sailing team, and it was a slick act. It was just hard to beat.
Team New Zealand complete the first successful defence of the America's Cup outside America!
You know, after 2000, there was obviously a big loss of key people from Team New Zealand at that time who went off to, form the Alingi team, and they went to Oracle, they went everywhere. So it was basically, what was left was a very young team.
The main boom, that new innovation that was seen there, has broken.
And all of a sudden we had a boat out there that was filling up with water, masts falling down. It was a step too far.
Just disaster for Team New Zealand.
We'll never outmuscle some of those big teams. We've got to be smart, we've got to try and outthink them, and we've got to come up with innovative ideas.
The first race of the America's Cup goes to Emirates Team New Zealand.
If you look back now, we were probably too conservative in the approach that we took, and that boat was tapped out pretty early.
The question is, imagine if these guys lost from here. What an upset that would be.
And obviously we were trying everything we could to squeeze more out of that boat, but we couldn't.
The comeback of 2013 is complete.
We definitely had more appetite for risk in the Bermuda Cup. We thought, right, we're behind. We're not going to go there and tread the same path as they are and outmuscle them.
We anticipated these guys to be good. I don't think anybody anticipated the Kiwis to be this good.
And I think that's something that we've got to, after all these challenges and after all these cups that we've gone through, that it sort of all seemed to come together for that 3 months in Bermuda.
The New Zealanders paddling into the history books. All that heartache and pain of San Francisco replaced by jubilation here in Bermuda.
We're not trying to defend it, we're actually going out to try and win the cup. All we're going to do is worry about, the 6th of March and the 10 days after that, and then take it from there.
Still no sea breeze on the course, so let's take a look at Ineos Team UK's America's Cup journey. The United Kingdom lost the old mug 170 years ago, and Sir Ben Ainslie wants it back.
The America's Cup is the pinnacle of sailing, really. So to be racing for the Cup, that's an incredible opportunity. There's no better platform in the sport of sailing.
Well, we're obviously a very proud maritime heritage, and we've won just about everything else in sport, but the America's Cup is the one thing that we've never won. That's something that kind of hurts, really, and it's 170 odd years of hurt, so that's our motivation to try and put that right.
We came out of Bermuda, we didn't achieve the goal, but we learnt a lot, we developed a lot, and we came out of that with the ambition to learn from that campaign and come out stronger for this AC36. Out of
all the America's Cups I've done, my fourth on that one, I learnt the most by a mile. We had some moments in the build-up to Bermuda that were really bad. We had rudders blowing off the back of the boat, we had all kinds of stuff going on within our foils, and we just kept going. We knew the whole world was looking at us, but we stayed really, really solid. Wherever we could, we kind of laughed it off, but it was hard.
Committee, just to inform you, we're retiring from this race. Over.
I mean, in today's day and age, when it's real good that blokes like me, middle-aged blokes like me, can talk about their mental health, there was a few of us that would have to go to the pub and have a few pints and talk really honestly. And when I started my cup career 20 years ago, you'd have been laughed at for having those conversations, but that openness has set this open culture that we have now.
Yeah, we had some big changes to the team from Bermuda. Lots of learnings from that campaign, and we did need to make some pretty significant changes to take ourselves up to that next level of pushing for the win. Biggest change, obviously, would be Ineos and Jim Ratcliffe coming on board. They've had a huge impact on the organisation, both in terms of the financing, but also the Ineos ethos of how they run their businesses and their other sports teams. You know, everybody's here with that same will to win, and that's what you want, that fighting spirit. I'm delighted with how the squad have come together. You know, a lot of the guys from the last campaign, some new faces, some younger faces coming through. And I think we're going to be a very potent team.
You go back to when the Cup started, and it's a challenge between nations. And there's not very many nations that's won it.
We'll be breathing down the necks of their Kiwis and be gunning for them to take them down, get that America's Cup back where it belongs.
Auckland, New Zealand has turned on a cracker of a day for the very first PRADA Christmas Race. Problem is, there's no wind, but that didn't stop our keen-eyed commentary team making some interesting observations. And as Ben Aisley said, it's all about foils, man.
It's all about the foils. The foils above the water and foils, as we're going to talk about, below the water. And there is really clear differences, and we're going to come up with the obvious here. First of all, the obvious is the dihedral or straight or ahedral, and that is a straight foil there, and then what we were originally referring to is Y foils on all of the other boats. So Team New Zealand is very clearly the one boat that has broken out of this Y-shaped foil. Why? Well, there's all kinds of reasons, and Nathan's going to get into the rule here in a second and how all these foils have to fit within a so-called box. If we go to the other side, one thing to look at right now is there is a clear bullet shape on the Team New Zealand, and if we switch to the other tack, which we might be able to do, you see almost like a flat, almost like a duck bill on this side. These guys are running two separate different foils on one side and the other. Why would they do that? They're testing. They're trying to figure out which foil is better in what condition, which foil makes them more stable, which foil makes them faster in what condition. Now, they haven't seen a lot of breeze in this event so far, so this is going to be a lot of light air testing and effective testing, most likely.
So here's the rule that the teams have to work with. You can see that the most important bit, I guess, is the bottom. You've got a 4-metre span across the bottom, but that box there is where the teams can put the foil. So that's your Team New Zealand foil. It's straight, and this is what all the other teams have gone for, the Y foil. You look down, you can make it quite a big, large span. You can make it tapered. You could sweep it back. That's more like the Ineos foil with a swept back foil. And then you can put a bulb in here if you wanted to too, which is where you can put the lead. You know, these foils have got to be a certain weight. There's got to be all different features here. And so if you put the lead in there, this looked like, you know, there's so many different versions of foils that they can do here.
Back on the racecourse, the white flag was eventually flown. Mother Nature was declared the winner. And with no puff, the very first PRADA Christmas race was cancelled.
Certainly a lost day, especially for this boat right now, because again, this is the final day. We keep harping on this, but I think it's super critical. The final day they get to sail against the challengers, and they needed all the time they possibly could against those other boats to get data and to hone their starting line sequence.
So that looks very much like Emirates Team UK may have called it a day. They may know something that we do not know. 6 p.m. cutoff time. No racing by 6 p.m. And the Christmas race is done and dusted with 3/4 of a race one done. So the Wind Grinch may have stolen the Christmas race, but there's plenty more action to come in the new year. The Prada Cup gets underway in January, and then it's game on. The battle for the Prada 36th America's Cup begins on the 6th of March.
Workforce. One. Here we go. You know,
Today's America's Cup Racing is brought to you by Spark.